This program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised. They are a violent band of brothers.
We kill to get in, die to get out.
Their hate molded in maximum security prisons.
Prison can turn somebody into a stone-cold racist.
I've seen my bros with their eyes poked out, their jaws wired together. I've seen them dead.
They're stone-cold killers.
If you disrespect one of my bros, it's gonna be one-on-one.
And threatening their supremacy is punishable by death. They're the Aryan Circle of Texas.
If you come in here, you mess with one of us, guess what? You're gonna mess with all of us.
Houston, the home of U.S. Oil, has more Fortune 500 companies than anywhere in America outside of New York City. It's also got a violent gangster culture. In 2008, 295 killings shook the city. Those responsible end up in the Texas Department of Corrections, or TDC. Many inmates gang up for protection.
The white race is pretty much considered to be the weaker race down here. If you show a sign of weakness or scared or intimidated, then they'll take advantage of it, try to take your money or sexually assault you.
It's here that a gang of hardened criminals flourishes. The brothers and sisters of the Aryan Circle, or AC.
There's almost no way to describe these people. If you want to use the term trailer trash, that would be a word that would fit.
They pledge allegiance to the swastika, but they claim to be separatists, not racists.
Being a racist is when you hate somebody for their color of their skin. That's not what it's about. It's about your heritage, about extending your race.
What most of these groups are trying to do now is to foster the idea that it's not that we're against blacks or Hispanics or Asians, we're for the white race. Well, it's just semantics.
The Aryan Circle claims not to be a gang, calling itself a family.
If you're in a hostile and prison environment and you don't have any family, you're out there fighting by yourself, somebody jumps in. Your respect level for that person that got in and helped you goes way up. I mean, there's pretty much nothing you wouldn't do for that person. It's brotherhood.
All gangs say they're a family. They join this group to find something that they were lacking in their life.
The Aryan Circle has a bloody heritage with powerful enemies. They're a menacing force that will kill anyone who threatens their supremacy.
They'll choose violence over every other solution to a problem that they run into. They don't negotiate.
Johnny Jones, aka JJ, was a high-ranking Aryan Circle member for more than 20 years. The Aryan Circle is the only family this 43-year-old knows.
My parents divorced when I was 9 years old. I ended up with my mom, and then she placed us in a home for unwanted children.
Jay has been incarcerated most of his life. First in reform school, then juvenile detention, and then, at 17, he was sent to prison.
When you come into prison, it's pretty hard. It's a rough place. And if you don't stand up for yourself, you either learn to fight or you're out of there.
JJ's been convicted of both burglary and drug possession. He's currently serving a 25-year sentence for aggravated assault.
I've been up for parole 7 times. I've been denied parole 7 times.
He's lived in this 75-square-foot cell for the last 9 years in segregation, or SEG. It's the TDC's answer to prison gang violence.
I was placed in SEG because I'm a member of the Aryan Circle. It's pretty hard sometimes. You try to stay busy.
You're locked in a single-man cell by yourself where you'll spend 23 hours a day, and your only way of communicating is either through sign language or passing notes.
But being segregated hasn't slowed the Aryan Circle. It still manages to conduct business using its most powerful tool, violence. Terry Raybourn, aka Maverick, fought his way to the top of the gang.
I jumped ranks so fast in AC. I hit hard, I was good.
As a teen, Maverick was sent to prison for aggravated armed robbery with a deadly weapon. He learned his lesson in the county jail before going to the big house.
I go in, I'm 185 pounds, 6 foot, but spending 5 months in the county jail with people who had already been to prison. They're throwing game at me, making me work out real hard, telling me how to recognize everything. So when I went to prison, yeah, I was a new boot, a new guy there, but somebody had been schooled.
Maverick was transferred into the TDC's notoriously violent Ferguson unit.
You don't want to go to Ferguson unit, because at the time it was known as the Gladiator unit. Bunch of fighting, just young guys in there, and everybody fights. Everybody's sizing you up. Okay, is this guy going to fight? Is he going to be somebody's punk?
Maverick says he never was a punk. He proved he was a force to be reckoned with from day one when he challenged a shot caller on the unit.
I've done put this guy on the spot that, okay, now it's either put up or shut up. And when that fight was all said and done, I done knocked him out. And everybody else was like, yeah, okay, he's gonna fight. He's gonna stand on his own 2 feet. He's gonna be more trouble than it's worth trying to mess with him.
The bros of the Aryan Circle have violent track records, and defying them could lead to a bloody end. Now they're taking their battle beyond prison walls. Bro Dennis Clem, aka Big Boy, helped take the gang's business to the streets. The 24-year-old had joined the gang in prison during a 4-year sentence for deadly conduct with a firearm.
He had achieved rank in the Aryan Circle because he spent so much time in prison. And on his last time out, he met Tanya Smith.
His girlfriend, Tanya Smith, aka Little Feather, dealt meth and marijuana. In 2005, the couple got arrested smuggling guns and drugs across the Mexico border. They each served less than a year for the offense before they reconnected in Houston. Soon, they started one of the most shocking crime sprees ever to hit the South. July 14th, 2007. 19-year-old Brandon Lewis was on a road trip to Houston with 3 friends. Brandon and 2 other African-American teens were being driven around by a white friend.
These young guys came up to see what Houston was all about, and were just simply being driven around by a friend that grew up in that neighborhood.
Brandon's mother thought his friends were trouble and sensed something was wrong.
I had warned him. I said, Brandon, don't get in that truck. Because something about them I didn't like. And he always say, oh, Mama, I got this.
Brandon's friend drove them through his Cloverleaf neighborhood. They ended up in front of the house where AC bro Dennis Clem lived.
Dennis Clem was probably less than happy as he stood on his porch and looked out and saw 3 young African-American gentlemen parked out in front of his house.
Words were exchanged. Tempers flared. A fight ensued. Police don't know why, but Brandon's white friend fired toward the house. And they sped away. Clem's Aryan Circle instincts took over. No way he'd let them disrespect him like that.
Dennis Clem gets an AK-47 rifle. All the individuals that were in the truck were actually leaving, driving down the street when Dennis Clem began to fire upon the truck from the rear.
The truck was half a block away when Clem fired. Bullets hit Brandon and another passenger.
It penetrated the truck like butter. The vehicle had multiple through and through rounds where a round would go through the tailgate or the bed, into the cabin of the vehicle, through the seats, and continue into the dash.
Brandon's mother later got the call that her son had been shot.
Brandon caught 2 bullets, and they took him to the hospital, but 3 hours later, he was dead.
Dennis Clem fled the scene with Tanya Smith in tow. But law enforcement was quick to react.
We received intelligence that he was extremely dangerous. We were told that he had no intention to go back to prison under any circumstance.
They became a Bonnie and Clyde. They did. She wrote him one letter, if you want to follow Dennis and I, just follow the shell casings.
On August 5th, Clem and Smith rolled into tiny Bastrop, Louisiana.
They came to Bastrop because they had a friend here, another Aryan Circle member. He rented the motel room in Bastrop in his name so they could stay there because they didn't want anything in their name.
Clem and Smith holed up at the Budget Inn, located directly across the street from the Bastrop Police Department. For 5 days, they went unnoticed. Security cameras caught Clem and Smith shopping at the local Walmart. They were hiding. But the worst was yet to come.
We knew that when he was out on the run, for every day that he was out there, he could wreak havoc.
Houston, Texas. America's 4th largest city has more than 2 million residents and one of the country's biggest gang problems.
We have representatives from the West Coast gangs, Crips and Bloods. We have Midwest gangs, Latin Kings, Gangster Disciples, Black Disciples. Most of the prison gangs are represented in Houston,
including the Aryan Circle, founded by a natural-born leader.
When I founded it, it was to get us through prison. It was to get us through a hostile environment where you had to survive.
Mark Gaspard, a.k.a. Cowboy, is the Aryan Circle's founding father.
Surviving very well could mean that you might have to kill somebody. Certainly that you were going to have to fight your way through it.
In 1979, Cowboy landed in the Texas Department of Corrections Ferguson unit on a burglary conviction. The unit was deeply divided along racial lines.
You had white line, black line, and Mexican line. Almost from the beginning, there was just trouble between them. I just started seeing a hardship on white guys.
By 1982, Cowboy had seen enough. His brother-in-law recruited him to join the Aryan Army, one of several white supremacist gangs in the TDC. But infighting soon threatened to break up the gang.
I didn't like that they turned on each other and started stabbing each other. It's supposed to be us against everybody else, not whites against white.
So in 1984, Cowboy took matters into his own hands and started a new gang called the New Brotherhood. Cowboy drafted a handwritten constitution and used it to recruit members.
When we had to go somewhere, we would take copies of the Constitution with us. We would hope that we would run into somebody that we knew, that we could pass it on.
By 1985, the New Brotherhood had about 30 members. But Cowboy wanted a name that better reflected the gang's mission. He decided on the Aryan Circle, naming it after a gang of assassins.
That originated from a book by Robert Ludlum called The Meretree Circle. And there was a group of men in there that had a circle under their chest.
Our first patch was a circle. Just a circle right here underneath your breast.
They hoped the simple design would go unnoticed by the TDC. The prison system had begun segregating known gang members, and the patch was a dead giveaway of gang ties. By 1990, the Aryan Circle had spread throughout the TDC and could no longer fly under the radar. Terry Rayborn, aka Maverick, learned of the Aryan Circle when he landed in segregation after an escape attempt.
We were already across the river almost. The rifles came out, they come off their horses, kneeling down with their handguns. They have already called people on the other side of the river.
Maverick was told he'd be in seg for 9 months. It was long enough for a friend to convert him to the dark side.
He gives me the rundown that we're a group of white dudes who are going to stand together, that once we get out on the streets, we're going to help each other out.
Maverick was ordered to attack some gang members on his tier as part of his initiation. These Aryan Circle members were trying to form a new gang.
These guys up the hallway say that they're going to get out of the AC, and they're going to form another gang. The gang they form is the White Knights. I ended up catching one of them in the hallway, and I whooped his ass. If you're getting out, you're going out with bruises.
This kicked off a deadly war with the White Knights. It also proved Maverick was down for the cause.
He followed through with everything. He wasn't one of these kind of people who just had an ideal and it petered out.
By 1997, Maverick had become a ranking member of the AC. And as tensions with the White Knights grew, he became a target.
At that time, I'm the VP in population, got a job in the kitchen, and 2 White Knights tried to stab me. That started the war right there.
The Aryan Circle ordered a hit on Maverick's assailant.
They stabbed him and broke the shank off in him. When they stabbed him, snapped the shank so it couldn't be pulled out. Stomped him, kicked him off 3-row, went down there and stomped him some more, and he went into a coma. And then they pulled the plug.
This act of vengeance cemented the gang's reputation. Cowboy and Maverick watched the Aryan Circle's membership explode.
We had already decided that we weren't ever going to be over 30 people. But the 30 thing never held up. It just went on and on from there.
They decided they needed people on the outside to help them communicate with members in other units. So the gang enlisted women to handle their business on the streets.
The other gangs and families are missing the greatest influence and source of power and revenue that they could ever find in life by treating their women as property of, instead of letting them know that they are equal and useful, resourceful, brave, damn smart.
Cowboy schooled KD to work as a fixer for the gang.
There's never been another woman that held any kind of rank over the men or over the total population until me.
KD was quickly addicted to the power of her position.
I'm an adrenaline junkie anyway, and I love things like that, and I thought, why not? Well, not only can I do good for these guys, but I'll be the first woman to have ever done it.
To help the family grow on the outside, the Aryan Circle also recruited new inmates with short sentences. But once they got out, these new recruits had little respect for the AC's way of life.
The ideals that I had were becoming outdated from the ideals of the new guys coming in. A lot of them were gang members on the streets, so they would come in and they'd already have that mentality.
They began dealing drugs, an offense banned by the gang's constitution.
You got people, instead of helping you get a job, throwing drugs at you.
In 2000, 29 Aryan Circle bros in Odessa, Texas started cooking meth and ripped off some local dealers.
You get a guy sitting in the box for 10 years, you send him out to a family that doesn't even want him around anymore. What the hell is he gonna do? He's either gonna rob a store or cook dope. Cooking dope's easy.
In 15 years, Cowboy had watched the Aryan Circle become a ruthless gang of drug dealers and dope fiends, and he wanted out.
You can't help but sit back and just think, is this what I want? Is this what I want to do? Is this how I want it to go?
But drug dealing was nothing compared to the crime the Aryan Circle was about to perpetrate on the outside.
I could work another 20 years and never have anything of that magnitude come at me.
Houston, the oil and gas capital of America. And home to the bros of the Aryan Circle, white separatists trying to earn their keep in the free world.
They're heavily involved in drug trafficking, so they obviously are a danger to our community by bringing methamphetamine.
But drug use and dealing is strictly forbidden by the Aryan Circle's constitution, which spews a white is right ideology.
We originally started out as preservation of the white race in a hostile prison environment. I'm for non-interracial marriages, for continuing your heritage, your culture.
The Constitution also lays out the AC's bylaws and highly regimented structure.
We had 4 branches. We had the men's branch, women's branch, the church branch, and we had the external branch. Later on, we did away with the women's branch and just kind of incorporated them in.
The gang's leaders are called the Center Ring.
It was made up of a president, the vice president, the secretary, treasurer, and there was a sergeant at arms.
The Center Ring keeps a firm grip on the gang. The Aryan Circle is divided into districts by prison unit and geographic area. Each district has a chain of command.
The very bottom would be the lieutenant, then your captain, and then your deputy director, which is called a dirty dog, and then the director.
Orders from the Center Ring come down in code through letters to district directors.
So you say Tina Marie's eyes are green, that means it's a green light.
Tina Marie is a nickname the gang uses for rival gang, the Texas Mafia. And a green light means that it's killing time.
These gang members run these prisons, and what they say goes. So if it's to kill someone, that person's dead.
The gang's initiation often involves assaulting what they call a toad.
Let's say there's a loudmouth black dude on the unit. You want to be a prospect? Go take care of that.
How a prospect takes care of business can determine his future in the gang.
If the guy catches him in the cell by himself, shows me he's using his head. As opposed to the guy who does it in the chow hall in front of everybody with a pitcher, busts him in the back of the head, okay, you're going to be a crash dummy. I'm going to send you on missions that I know somebody's going to get caught doing this, but your mentality is that, okay, you're willing to do this.
This process is called slotting in. When a prospect becomes a member, they patch in by having the Aryan Circle tattooed on their chest. The patch is a badge of honor.
It like puts a star on your chest. I'm in, I'm down.
To avoid being put in segregation, bros will often camouflage the patch in a larger tattoo.
I got the jacket patch straight off. It's diamond shaped, rotating swastika in the middle of it, and then inside the swastika is a circle.
The square meant unity, everything equal, and each line meant honor, loyalty, dedication, and brotherhood.
Every member swears allegiance to the Aryan Circle until death. If a member is asked to leave the gang, he must cover his patch, or it will be removed for him.
I've heard stories with razor blades, straight up cut it off, burned out the circle, just like a cattle prod.
The Aryan Circle also prides itself on tattoos that display their beliefs. Dennis Clem and his girlfriend Tanya Smith both flew their colors proudly.
Dennis was covered with tattoos. He's got AC tattooed on his wrist and a bracelet made of wood grain. And he's got a ribbon across his chest with Clem on it. And on each side of it is AC. Tanya's tattoos were evident all over her body. She had Thor's hammer tattooed on the back of her neck, and in the middle of her back was a Norseman superimposed over a swastika. And then she had tattooed across her back, "Love Thy Race."
Their tats affirm their faith in Odinism, the religion embraced by many Aryan Circle members. It's based on Norse mythology and the gods Thor and Odin.
It's an attractive religion to people who are prone to violence. It's very warrior-oriented and kind of the philosophy that most gangs have, you know, live for today, for tomorrow we die.
A lot of them get into it because they think that is the starting point, the basis for Aryan, because of the Vikings being pure.
Odinists believe they will be rewarded in the afterlife.
The belief is that when you go to the other side, when you die, if you die as a warrior in battle, you go to Valhalla, which is a great hall where you sit around and you drink mead and you fight every day and you get cut up and you kill other people, and at the end of the day, you're restored to the way you were and you keep doing it all over again.
Women are called Valkyries, and they play a crucial role.
The Valkyries were daughters of Odin that carried the dead from the fields of battle, and if you died gloriously in battle, you were taken to Valhalla.
Aryan Circle member Dennis Clem and his girlfriend Tanya Smith would try to live by the tenets of their religion. For them, the trip to Valhalla would start with a deadly shootout in a quiet Louisiana town.
He was ready to go out in a blaze of glory, which he constantly bragged about. Dennis was ready to go. He was ready to go to Valhalla.
Houston, Texas. By 2007, the brothers of the Aryan Circle prison gang were making a name for themselves on the outside, dealing methamphetamine and murder.
It's nothing more than just a group of violent people. They're heavily involved in drug trafficking, so they are a danger to our community.
Dennis Big Boy Clem was one of the gang's most violent members.
He saw himself as a warrior for the white race.
July 14th, 2007. Dennis Clem and his girlfriend Tanya Littlefeather Smith were on the run. Clem had killed 2 African-American teenagers with an AK-47.
They didn't even know Dennis Clem. They never had a word with Dennis Clem. For those guys to die the way they died because of this man, that sticks with you.
Clem and Smith told friends that they had no intention of being caught and sent back to prison, no matter what the cost.
He had probably already formulated a plan that if he came across law enforcement, there was an apprehension that was attempted, he'd be no part of that.
Clem and Smith were prepared to die rather than surrender to the cops.
He made that decision a long time ago, to live by the sword and die by the sword.
The two used their Aryan Circle connections to hide in plain sight. They got another gang member to rent a motel room in tiny Bastrop, Louisiana, across from the police station. August 10th. The Aryan Circle member who rented the room was also wanted by police for stealing a stereo. Bastrop police detectives Chuck Wilson and John Smith were working the case. The two men had been partners for 11 years.
These young men were very straightforward, very honest, very sincere, both family men and very much a part of the community.
One of the detectives got a call on his cell phone, telling him that the man he was looking for had checked into the motel. They headed over, unaware of what they were walking into.
They made a call during their lunch hour to respond to stolen stereo equipment. I mean, it's not like this was a murder.
The detectives were cautious, but they unassumingly knocked on the door.
You knock on that door, and you just never know what's really in there. It's hard to do much intel.
It was some time before the door opened. I would say in excess of a minute.
Tanya Smith opened the door. The detectives could immediately smell marijuana, and they saw a bong on the nightstand near the bed.
So when she opened that door and that policeman saw that bong in plain view, she knew at that point somebody was going to be arrested.
Dennis Clem wasn't going to let that happen. He pulled out 2 guns and ambushed the detectives. They didn't even have time to draw their weapons.
They ran outside, and as they ran outside, Dennis Clem ran out with a gun in each hand, firing at these 2 young police officers as they're trying to flee, and killed both of them.
The motel's security cameras captured what happened next. Tanya Smith immediately walked out of the room, her arms raised, fearing the detectives were still alive.
Miss Smith walks out, purse in hand, and appeared to be on a stroll. She walks off, says nothing to no one. When the owner of the motel asks her what happened, she says, "I don't know."
I have no idea.
And then she walked away, made a phone call, and escaped back to Houston, Texas.
Dennis Clem retreated back into the motel room as police gathered outside.
Clem was holding the police there so that Tanya could get away. When one of the police officers comes there, he opens the door and makes sure the policeman sees him in full regalia. Blue shorts, tattoos all over him, no shirt on, makes certain he sees him, and sees him with 2 black pistols.
The responding officers trained their guns on the door.
He's taunting the officers. The officers are yelling at him, "Come out, come out." And he's yelling back at them, "Come get me."
As paramedics worked desperately on the fallen detectives, Clem emerged, and all hell broke loose. Clem popped off shot after shot. Car windows exploded as police ducked for cover and fired back. During the melee, Clem shot and wounded 2 paramedics before police could stop him.
He had received no fatal wounds until the last volley. And the last volley you can see on the video is policeman and outlaw face-to-face shooting it out with automatic pistols, and it's a hell of a scene.
Officers unloaded 17 bullets into Clem before he stumbled along the sidewalk, finally collapsing on top of his first victim, Detective Smith.
He died on the sidewalk. He got sidewalk justice.
Detectives at the scene quickly learned what had fueled Dennis Clem's murderous assault. Inside their room, investigators found white supremacist and Aryan Circle paraphernalia, as well as meth, ammo, and the police scanner.
I believe that they were listening to the police talk on their radios. I believe they knew from that source that they were there.
With her boyfriend dead, Tanya Smith was alone and on the run.
She is the one that orchestrated this murder. But for her opening that door, we don't have a murder. We have 2 policemen that go on about their business. But for that, she set that trap like a spider.
And in the process, Smith became Clem's Valkyrie.
His purpose in life was to die in battle. It just happened to happen that day in Bastrop, Louisiana. Valhalla didn't take him. Hell took him. There's no question of that. And his girlfriend is just as guilty as she was.
Smith wasn't on the run for long. U.S. Marshals surprised her at a trailer park near Houston 2 days later.
She told the police that arrested her, "You better be glad I didn't know you were coming this time." So, listen, you didn't have an innocent girl walking out of that room. You had a murderer walking out of that room, running from the scene, and going to Houston, Texas to hide, wherein she was caught.
Smith was extradited to Louisiana, where she was tried and convicted on 2 counts of second-degree murder. She'll spend her life in a Louisiana prison with no chance for parole.
She needed to serve her time for her involvement, but also to send a message to AC members, we're not going to tolerate it in this area.
She knew she was going to get life. Dennis knew she was going to get life. They knew the consequences. They invited the consequences.
In August 2007, the heat was on the Aryan Circle, a violent prison gang. Gang member Dennis Big Boy Clem killed 2 teenagers in Houston, Texas, and 2 detectives in Bastrop, Louisiana, just weeks apart. The shootings put the Aryan Circle on law enforcement's map. But its members insist this was not a gang-related crime.
Straight up killing is not what AC stands for. How can you judge an organization or a group or a gang by the actions of a few handful of people?
It's like raising your child in a certain fashion, and then when they become adult and act that way, you go, I have no responsibility, they're an adult, they did that on their own? Not hardly. They know what's going to happen.
The Aryan Circle is still thriving, but some of its older members believe the gang has changed.
For me to consider it a gang, it really hurts because that's not what I joined. I mean, that's not what I fought for all them years for it to turn into a big gang.
Maverick served 17 years in prison and is out on parole, working as a tire technician in Texas. He's no longer a member of the Aryan Circle, but he's still down for the cause.
I mean, I went through so much with so many people that are even still in there that they're my bro. There's no way around it. And I'm gonna be bros with them forever. But that don't mean that I've got to be under this AC flag or any other flag to be this guy's bro.
Still, he says being a bro does have its drawbacks.
Being in the AC, yeah, it cost me a lot of time in prison. A lot. It's hard to say, yeah, okay, I regret this, but would I recommend it? No.
JJ has spent the last 9 years in segregation. It's been hell, and it was his membership in the Aryan Circle that got him here. Unless he's paroled, he's got another 9 years to go.
How can you explain to somebody staying in the cell 23 hours a day, being fed through a square slot in your door, or with 1 hour of recreation in a cage by yourself with a basketball and a pull-up bar? How do you explain that's not the right lifestyle?
JJ is proud of what the Aryan Circle stood for, but he doesn't like the gang's direction.
It's all right to be proud to be white, be proud of your race, but we want to run around and do drugs and commit crimes, and then that's not helping your people. I don't want to be a part of that.
The Aryan Circle's founding father, Cowboy, is now out of prison, working as a cattle rancher in Texas. Though he doesn't agree with what's happening in the AC today, he still credits the gang for saving his life.
There just comes a point in your life where you just decide that this is not what I want to do now. It doesn't mean that you don't believe the same way, or you don't have the same feelings for people. If it wasn't for the Aryan Circle in prison, that a lot of us wouldn't have made it back then.
Still, he says he regrets some of what happened under his watch.
I've seen my bros with their eyes poked out. I've seen 10 or 12 of them at a time with their jaws wired together. I've seen them dead. I've seen guys that were about to go home that are on death row now. I'm sorry for a lot of that stuff that happened, but I don't think there was any way to avoid it.
The gang publishes a bi-monthly newsletter called The Circular to spread its message of white purity and to keep its membership strong. It seems to be working. The gang has grown to more than 3,000 brothers in more than 13 states. But KD says that growth has only contributed to the family's demise.
It's losing its family. It's losing what Cowboy's dream was and what all of our dream was up until about 4 or 5 years ago. It's very disheartening.
Even still, she says she loves the Aryan Circle, despite what it's become in recent years.
It will be just another gang of killers and dopers. We've lost control of our members. And now we have a monster on our hands.